Welcome to Booklovers Podcast, a podcast from the staff at the Clermont County Library. This edition is a video podcast, which you can find on YouTube and Facebook. Joining me today are my colleagues Laura, Shayna, and Jordan. And today we're going to talk about your next great read. And because it's a video podcast, I'm going to share my screen where we have the book covers. Here we go. All right. So first up, we've got a beach read.
I do believe that's my pick.
All right. Let's hear about it, Laura.
Let me get to it. So, beach read by Emily Henry. After a breakup and a soul-shaking revelation about her father, best-selling author January Andrews runs to a summer cottage to work on her latest romance novel, one with a looming deadline. When her neighbor throws a rowdy late-night party, January confronts him only to discover it's her college rival and nemesis, Augustus Everett, an acclaimed author of literary fiction. Turns out they're both suffering from writer's block, so they make a deal. They decide to swap genres because what could be better, right? January will give Gus a crash course in the world of rom-com, and Augustus will take her with him when he does research interviews with survivors of a backwoods death cult. And if that doesn't scream summer romance, I don't know what does. So anyway, it's a super sweet enemies to lovers romance, and it's the perfect beach read. I've noticed it has been popping up all over the socials, particularly on Bookstagram.
Yes.
So it is very buzzy and hot right now.
And you have a read-alike for us?
I do. It's called Less by Andrew Sean Greer. Receiving an invitation to his ex-boyfriend's wedding, Arthur, a failed novelist on the eve of his 50th birthday, embarks on an international journey that finds him falling in love, risking his life, reinventing himself, and making connections with the past.
Cool. I like it. I like that they both have those illustrated eye-catching covers.
True. I can see why Beach Read is all over Instagram because it's just a very attractive cover.
Ooh. I love that cover. Like, if a book is yellow, it just draws my attention. I love a good yellow book. So, like, that one's going on my list because it's yellow. And I just love, like, the artwork. Like, I love how it says a novel on her little beach hat. That's just adorable.
And it's a super sweet book. So not only do you get yellow, but you also get a good story.
All right.
Cool. So this book caught my attention a few months ago, mostly because of the cover. The cover is amazing, and I have no shame in admitting that I totally get drawn in by that.
That's why Laura and I wanted to start doing the podcast with the covers as the video, because we try to describe the covers and it's kind of hard to convey. We try to describe it. It gets totally through. So if you're listening to us, come join us on the video so you can see these covers, or come into the library and pick it up.
This cover just really stood out to me. So the book is called With the Fire on High, which the title was also really interesting to me because I love to cook and I love stories about cooking and kind of how authors tie cooking in with other things in their lives, and this book is perfect for that. So what this book is about, it's a young adult fiction, but anyone would enjoy it. I definitely enjoyed it. And so it's about the main character, Imani, who is featured on the cover. She is a high school senior, and she has a young daughter, so she's a young mother, and she lives with her grandmother, who helps take care of her and her daughter with her. And her dream is to become a chef and express herself through cooking and really kind of do her own thing with cooking, which she demonstrates throughout the book. Like, I got a lot of really great recipe ideas just from reading the book. It was awesome. And so she's about to graduate, and she's trying to figure out how she's going to accomplish these things and what her next step is. So there's a lot of like overcoming obstacles and the adversity and stuff like that. So if you like kind of stuff that you can relate to like that, it's a really great book.
Cool.
And I listened to the audiobook, which is actually read by the author, Elizabeth Acevedo. And I love doing that because I feel like they read it the way they intended the book to be heard. Yeah. Yeah, and she was just wonderful. So the audiobook, I listened to it on Hoopla. And
Great.
we should have it in the branches as well. And we also have like the hardcover, the ebook. So all kinds of options to get this book. So for a read-alike, I picked another young adult novel that I really enjoyed, which is Simon versus the Homo sapiens Agenda, which is the book that Love, Simon is based on. They just kind of simplified the title a little bit more, but it didn't work as well on movie posters. But this is what Love, Simon is based on. So if you enjoy like young adult novels about overcoming adversity, changes in life, unique circumstances, I think if you enjoyed either one of these, I think you would enjoy the other as well.
Great. All right. After the End.
Yes, that one is mine.
It's a yellow cover. I should have known it was
I added a yellow book on purpose. So yeah, when I saw this book come into the library new, and of course it's yellow, so I had to see what it was about. It is adult fiction. It's a heartbreaking story, but it's really good. Normally I wouldn't read a book like this, but it just caught my attention, and each chapter is told from different points of view, which I love a book like that because I feel like you can really get to know the character better because it's told from their perspective. So I'll talk about the summary. Max and Pip have been living the perfect life until their 3-year-old son, Dylan, becomes critically ill. Dylan has a brain tumor and it is growing. His quality of life has been diminished and his parents are forced to make a choice about his care and his future. They find themselves at an impasse, unable to agree on which path is the right one. Let Dylan die peacefully or continue to fight. Pip thinks that the best path for her son is to allow him to die peacefully and naturally. He has suffered enough. Max disagrees. He believes that they should prolong Dylan's life no matter what it takes. Unable to agree on an answer, Dylan's medical case is taken to a judge to decide for them. So, yeah, it's a real... Yeah, tearjerker. It's heartbreaking. It's definitely about a difficult subject. And I listened to the audio on this one on Libby. And again, with the different points of view chapters, you got like a male reading for Max, and then you got a female reading for Pip. So it was really cool. But in the afterword, the author came on, and this book, she and her husband actually experienced this similar experience. So I was like, oh wow. So it just really brought it to home more, like, oh, what would I do if I was in that situation? And it's impossible to pick a side. I mean, it's really good. And so then the read alike that I have for that one is Faithful by Alice Hoffman. And so here's a short summary for that one. Shelby Richmond is an ordinary girl until one night an extraordinary tragedy changes her fate. Her best friend's future is destroyed in an accident while Shelby walks away with the burden of guilt. What happens when a life is turned inside out? So that one, again, is one of those stories that's like, this could happen in real life. It has happened to people. And it's just, interesting to read something like that.
Sure.
So it was really good.
Yeah.
All right. Love lettering.
I'm going to lighten things up a little. This is Love Lettering by Kate Claiborne. And Meg Mackworth, her hand lettering skill has made her famous. She designs custom journals for her New York City clientele. She also has another skill, reading signs that other people miss, and sometimes she can't help but weave these secret signs into her designs. Most people never notice them, but Reed Sutherland comes into her shop and wants to know how Meg knew his engagement would fail. But Meg's got problems of her own. She's got a chance to work with a big company and get national exposure for her work, but she's got a serious case of creative block. So Reed offers Meg a way to rediscover her creativity, he asks her to explain her love for typography and lettering. And so she takes him on short little trips around New York City and shows him her favorite signs. And of course, soon they're meeting for lunch and texting each other, as one does. So maybe she can help him loosen up just a tiny bit, and maybe he can help her find her inspiration again. Very sweet new adult book, I thought.
Oh, okay.
And if you're into the whole hand lettering thing, it has lots of talk about the art and typography and font. So that part was very much fun.
Your read-alike? My
read-alike is
Passion on Park Avenue.
I know, doesn't that sound exciting?
Yes.
So, Passion on Park Avenue by Lauren Lane. This is an enemies to lovers romance about the daughter of a housekeeper becoming CEO of a jewelry design company. Of course, one day she runs into the son of the family her mom worked for, the very person who made her life so very miserable. But because this is an enemies to lovers romance, of course, sparks fly, and so does the witty banter.
Oh, as it does.
As it does when you're hobnobbing New York City's elite.
And I see the link between these two is the skyline, Laura.
Beautiful covers. They're shades of blue and they make me happy.
Sweetness at the bottom of the pie.
Yep. So this one is my second one. So this is a book that I just kept seeing everywhere. Like, that cover just followed me everywhere. I'm like, okay, clearly I need to read this book. And I found out that it's the first book to a mystery series, which was perfect for me. I'm like, all right, I was meant to read this book. This is The Sweetness at the Bottom of the Pie by Alan Bradley. And so I have the description from Novelist, which we use a lot in the library system. So the summary is, 11-year-old Flavia DeLuce, an aspiring chemist with a passion for poison, begins her adventure when a dead bird is found on the doorstep of her family's mansion in the summer of 1950, thus propelling her into a mystery that involves an investigation into a man's murder where her father is the main suspect. So
in one of the opening scenes, I think it's in the opening scene, it's been a while since I've read it, but isn't Flavia locked in the closet by her two sisters?
That's actually the first line of the book, was something about she struggled against her restraints or something in the dark closet. I'm like, whoa, that escalated quickly. Okay.
They had tied her up and stuffed her in the closet. And of course, she's plotting her revenge, how she's going to poison them when she gets out of the closet.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Not that actually happens, but it's so much fun. She is such a delightful narrator. And I love the fact that I think Alan Bradley was older when he wrote this, I want to say.
Yeah, I think so. I forget how old he is now, but yeah, he was older when he started the series. But one of my favorite parts, like, not just the story and the mystery, but her relationship with her sisters is just hilarious because it's so accurate. Yeah.
All right.
And while I was reading this, they even mention Agatha Christie somewhere in the book, so they are, to the authors, aware of the similarities, I guess. One of my favorite books by Agatha Christie is Crooked House. And I picked that one to go along with this one because it's also like a family-related murder mystery, big creepy house in the countryside, all of that. And there's also another young female character in Crooked House who I immediately, when I started reading about Flavia, I was like, oh, that sounds like Josephine from Crooked House. And I definitely made that connection because not only are they similar just in age and everything, but they also have similar interests science-wise, and that's all I'll say about that because I don't want to ruin Crooked House.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Children of Our Blood and Bone.
Yes. So this book, oh my gosh, this book is awesome. It's just awesome.
It is.
Look at the cover, awesome. Like the title, it's just really, really cool. A friend of mine recommended this book to me, and when I asked her, like, well, what did you like about it? You know, she's like, well, it has fierce warriors and magic. That's all you need to know. And I was like, okay. So, you know, I had to get my hands on it. So I'll go ahead with the summary. They killed my mother. They took our magic. They tried to bury us. Now we rise. Everything changed the night magic disappeared. Under the orders of a ruthless king, magi were killed, leaving Zelly without a mother and her people without hope. Now Zelly has one chance to bring back magic and strike against the monarchy. With the help of the kingdom's princess, Zelly must outwit and outrun the crown prince, who is determined on eradicating magic for good. And I don't want to give too many details. I made that description short because I'm like, no, it needs to be read. I mean, yeah, it's just such a cool book. So magi in this book, they're born with magic, and there's different abilities that you're born with. And so on the cover, that's Zelly, and she's got that white hair. So in the book, her hair is like a lion's mane. I mean, she's just got this gorgeous white hair because she's full of magic. And so, you know, the princess, I mean, she rebels against her own father, the king, and she helps Zelly. And I mean, Zelly has a pet lion that she rides through like the forest, like a magical queen. Like, it's just really, really good. It is young adult, but I think adults would like it too.
There's a lot of young adult that adults will like. Look at Laura's nodding her head. She's a reader of both, so.
Yeah, and this one also is like my favorite writing style. From each chapter is from a different character's perspective. So it's also multiple points of view, which I love again. So yeah, it's just really good. And there's more characters than just Zelly and the princess. Like the princess's brother, the prince, who is after them, he ends up having a white streak start to grow in his hair. And he's like, oh my gosh. So he keeps like covering it up to hide it, because he thinks magic is bad, but he's a magi. So there's a lot to that. It's really good. If you haven't read it, read it.
All right. And a read alike.
Yes. For that one, I chose The Young Elites by Marie Lu. I chose it because, so in Children of Blood and Bone, the main character is Zelly, and she is this fierce woman. I mean, she is just so awesome, so sure of herself, and just not afraid. And that's how Adelina is in The Young Elites. So it's just like that similarity for like a strong female character, which I love.
Yes.
So just a short summary for that one. Adelina survived the blood fever, a deadly illness that has killed many, but has left others with strange markings and supernatural powers. Cast out by her family, Adelina joins the secret society of the Young Elites and discovers that she has her own dangerous abilities. So it's got that magic, you know, in it, and magic is bad, and they cast them out and everything. So it's very similar. It's really good.
Cool. All right.
All right, my last book, and this is, if anybody's been watching Indian Matchmaking, this is perfect book for that. So, The Marriage Game by Sarah Desai. Layla's parents run a Michelin-starred Indian restaurant. Traditional in their ways, they believe in arranged marriages. Her father signs Layla up for IndianGirlMatch.com and sets up a series of dates without telling her. Layla is moving back to San Francisco to start her own business, and her father has agreed to let her use the office above the restaurant, except that he's already rented the space out to Sam, also the child of first-generation Indian immigrants. Before Layla's father can sort out who gets the office space, he's hospitalized. Oh. And Sam and Layla are battling it out for possession of the office space. When Sam comes up with a delightful proposition, as one does in these situations, he suggests that Layla goes out on the dates that her father arranged. If she accepts one of the suitors, she gets engaged and he gets the office. If Layla rejects all of the men, she gets the office. So nothing could possibly go wrong, right? So super fun description of Bollywood movies. Lots of descriptions of delicious Indian food. Just a super cute book.
Do you think this book will be made into a movie?
Oh, it has adorable
all the makings of it
written all over it.
Yeah.
Yes. And I cannot open up my news app on my phone without seeing stuff about Indian matchmaking.
Right.
It's everywhere.
It is. Yeah.
So if there is somebody smart out there, they will snatch up the rights to the marriage game.
Right. Well, let's keep our ears peeled because it seems like a picking.
So my read-alike is Pride, Prejudice, and Other Flavors by Sonali Dev. Trisha is the privileged daughter of Indian immigrants and a talented neurosurgeon. Up-and-coming chef DJ Kane has known people like Trisha before, people who judge him by his rough beginnings. He needs the lucrative job Trisha's family offers him, but he values his pride too much to indulge in her arrogance until he discovers that she's the only surgeon who can save his sister's life. Doesn't that sound very Hallmark movie?
Yes.
That again has delicious descriptions of Indian food. It was, yes, I was drooling the entire time.
Great. Good 2 for 1 on that.
I wanted it to be a scratch and sniff.
Oh, yeah, if only.
I loved this cover. When I seen it, I'm like, look at that cute little shop with the like ivy and the flowers like coming down on the window. I want that to be real. Like I want to walk down the street and find this. So yeah, this is The Little Shop of Found Things by Paula Braxton. And here's the summary. Xanthi has a special ability to sense the history of the items that she touches. When she touches them, she can sense the stories that the items hold. While she is examining a chatelaine, she is transported back to the 17th century. When she finds her way back home in her own time, she is confronted by a ghost who is haunting the antique shop owned by Xanthi and her mother. The ghost gives Xanthi an ultimatum, threatening her family if she fails. So Xanthi travels back to the 17th century, where she ends up meeting Samuel. And while Xanthi tries to find out the history of the chatelaine, her and Samuel end up falling in love. When it is time for Xanthi to go back to her own time, she is torn between her love for Samuel and her home. So this one, I love this book so much. And it actually has a sequel, which it's sitting on my bedside table. I need to dive into it. It's called Secrets of the Chocolate House.
Oh, wow.
So, I can't wait. I mean, this book, it has time travel, romance, and I mean, it has a ghost mystery. I mean, it's just so, so good. And like the details in it, like when she goes back in time, I think the year is like 1605 or something. So, she goes back and she's like, oh my gosh, like what the heck? Yeah, it was just really, really good. And again, I love the cover. It just reminds me
charming.
Yeah, it's cute. It's charming.
And your read-alike is called The Book Charmer. So.
Yeah. So that one, I haven't read that one yet. But when I was looking for a read-alike for this one, that popped up. And when I read the summary, I'm like, oh yeah, this sounds like it would be a great one. So short summary for The Book Charmer. To Sarah Dove, books have always been more than just objects. They live, they breathe, and sometimes they even speak. As a librarian, her gift helps place every book into the hands of the perfect reader. Recently, however, the books have been whispering about something out of the ordinary. So she also can touch.
Now we have to read and find out. So.
I know.
I was writing it down. I'm like, I didn't know about that. So yeah, sounds good.
Good one.
All right. So this one is my last one for today. So this book came out a while ago. I'd say like 10, maybe 15 years ago. It's actually an anthology of short stories, and for this one, the title is what got me, which is St. Lucy's Home for Girls Raised by Wolves. And I was like, yeah, I need to read that. I'm a big fan of Angela Carter, who wrote a lot of like she did a lot of like Red Riding Hood and fairy tale retellings and stuff like that. So when I saw that, my first thought was Angela Carter. So there are 10 short stories in here, and they're based in the Florida Everglades, which I personally have never read much based in that area in particular. So I learned a lot reading those stories, like about the area and the culture and everything. So it was really interesting. And all of the characters are children, very resilient, very misbehaving children. So it was really fun doing that. So my favorite stories from the collection is the title. My favorite was the title story, which is actually the last one. So St. Lucy's Home for Girls Raised by Wolves. And then my other favorite was called ZZ's Sleepaway Camp for Disordered Dreamers. So that one was really fun. It was like a summer camp for kids with like nightmares, insomnia, like all these different sleep disorders, and they all have their own bunks, and it was really great. And the characters were so funny in all of the stories and so relatable. It's very whimsical storytelling, so if you're really into stuff like that. And something interesting about these stories was that all of them ended, well, maybe not all, but most of them ended on a cliffhanger. Kind of weird because they're not connected. But it was an interesting way to end a short story because there is like nothing else to satisfy that cliffhanger. So at the end you're like, no, tell me more. But it was a fun read. I really enjoyed it. So with the read alike, so one of my favorite short story writers is Stephen King. Like, I'll read literally anything written by him. I've been reading him since I was 14. And he just has the most amazing short story collections. A lot of people actually won't read his novels. Like, they just prefer his short stories. And I picked this one because I read it recently, and it's a huge anthology of short stories. And they're very dark, and most of them you don't know what's going on until at the end of it. But it's just so great. And like in true Stephen King fashion, like the characters are just so real, and you're kind of walking alongside them in the story. That's just how he writes his plots, and it's really, really well done. And my favorites from Bizarre Bad Dreams were called Morality and Afterlife. So there's a bunch of short stories in there, but those two really stood out to me. And on that note, if you wanted to check out St. Lucy's, pretty much anything by like Stephen King, Daphne du Maurier, Shirley Jackson, if you enjoy like the whimsical, darker short stories, we have so much more you can check out. So
yes, come into one of our branches and ask about them.
Yeah.
Get a stack, absolutely. And just a reminder that if you don't want to come into our branches right now, you can use our digital selection. We have magazines from RB Digital. We've referenced, Shana mentioned listening to audiobooks on the Libby app. That's my favorite way to listen to books. Also, we have Hoopla, which is instant offerings of books, but also music. So check those out. Thank you, Shana, Jordan, and Laura for your selections today. An eclectic mix of books, which is representative of what we have at the library. And all this information will be available on ClermontLibrary.org. So if you are listening or watching and want more information, visit us at the library. Also come into any of our 10 branches. Come talk to us. Ask us about your next great read. Thank you.